Hello there, kia ora. My name is Sarah Spence and I've been asked to talk to you a wee bit today about group intonation and some techniques that you can put into practice during your chamber music rehearsals. First up, active listening. Basically, even if you're not playing, your opinion is very important and very valuable. And in fact, intonation can be a bit easier to troubleshoot from that wee bit of distance that you have to your colleagues when you're all sitting playing together. So please speak up, and that includes keyboard players. You're very important. Group intonation does exactly what it says on the tin. We're all responsible for it all of the time. Secondly, tuning up. When you're tuning up, just do it one at a time. Make sure everyone gets the space that they need in order to be comfortable with tuning their instrument. Don't do it all at once. Then personally, and some people might disagree, but I like to be warmed up before doing intonation practice as a group. If we're all relaxed and making a really round, full body tone, it's going to be a bit easier and more efficient doing intonation practice. So we've warmed up. Now it's time to pick a spot that you'd like to work on. Rather than just playing the entire exposition and agreeing that we're all going to listen to our intonation, you're better off picking one small spot and doing really good detail on it. It might even just be 4 bars. In fact, I have picked out some bars for us to look at. So let's look at some Brahms. This just happens to be for strings and keyboard. But what I'm going to say applies to wind instruments as well. Let's take a look at just these last 3 bars here. So the first thing that happens is this big chord. When we're tuning chords, it's good to know which chord we're tuning. That's another good reason to have a score handy when we're practicing. So this is a G minor chord. Generally speaking, when practicing intonation, it's good to start from the bottom. Build your way up. If you've got good foundations, it's a lot easier to place the notes in the following layers. If we look here, the bass line, the cello line, has got the root of the chord, so that's handy, the G. So first of all, we're going to tune the G, and then we're going to add any unisons or any octaves to that G. Once we're happy with that, we're going to look for more perfect intervals. So the perfect fifth would be the first one to look for. And we do indeed have quite a few Ds around. So we're going to tune the Ds to the Gs. And then after that, that's when you can start getting a little bit fruity and add things like major thirds and minor thirds. A little side note, when practicing harmony and big chords like this, we're probably most likely to be using something called just intonation. Very broadly speaking, just intonation means that your major thirds are probably going to be a little bit lower than what you imagined, and minor thirds, there's one in here, might be slightly bigger than you thought it would be. However, it's really just experimenting. Just play and see what rings true to your ears. As per usual, we can see that it's the viola that's causing trouble with the minor third. So yeah, I would add that last. Moving on, we can see that all of the strings are playing a melodic line. Melodic lines like this, excuse me, are more likely to be tuned using something called the Pythagorean system, Pythagorean intonation. Yes, he does not only haunt your maths classroom, but he elbows his way into your music lesson as well. Again, broadly speaking, Pythagorean intonation, big steps, so whole steps are going to be quite big, and half steps are going to be quite small. So if we look at this F sharp to the G, that's going to be quite a small interval. That F sharp is going to be quite high. But you're probably using that sort of intonation at home when you're practicing your scales without even realizing that you're practicing Pythagoras at that particular moment in time. if we carry on looking, I would say that we'd start with the cello line and then add the viola line. When the viola line blends and it's all feeling pretty good, then we'll stick the treble line on top. Just for argument's sake, let's say that nobody can quite agree on this E flat. Well, this is when droning is quite a useful tool to use in concentrated intonation work. So one person would just hold the E flat, you would agree on the E flat that you're all aiming for. They would just drone that, and everyone else, one at a time, gets to noodle around in that sort of key, trying to get from a C to the E flat and just practicing that distance and hearing it. We come back out of Brahms for the moment. Lastly, I'd like to just say something about balance. Sometimes if intonation just doesn't seem to be settling, it might just be a balance issue. Try making some voices louder and some voices quieter. If you're playing in octaves, try keeping the lower voice just a couple of ticks louder than everything else. It might solve some issues straight away. And no, this is the last thing. Just want to talk about the example that we did for a second. Obviously, I ignored the piano part, I'm sorry. If you are playing with the piano, then the likelihood is you're just going to be tuning with the piano and doing a lot of work with the piano. So when I'm talking about just intonation with your chords, that would be more for when there isn't a keyboard player in the room. Okay, I could blather on for a lot longer, but I think that's probably quite enough for the moment. Please look these things up, and there's a lot that you can learn online, and I hope that some of it helped. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.